Hi, I'm Jono, and if you're new here, I do pencil drawings. So I've just finished this drawing here, and I'm so thrilled. It's been a long time in the making. So I really enjoyed exploring a couple techniques that I'm familiar with, but I also dove really deep into them. So there's a ton of detail in this drawing. So I wanted to take you through some of the process of drawing the skin texture in particular. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, but I'll tell you more about them later. This is the largest drawing that I've done, and working on such a large scale, it does afford you the luxury of being able to draw really, really fine details with a larger space. So each pore is separated by a couple mils as opposed to being so small that your tools are almost unable to make those marks. So being able to draw at this scale was one of the first things that really helped in being able to achieve this level of detail in these textures. But drawing large like this comes with a whole new set of problems, and that is getting even and balanced tones over large areas. So that's always a huge challenge, to try and have your tones be accurate and then have an even distribution of those tones over large areas. So for example, the highlights on the cheeks or this little highlight on the side of the nose becomes quite a lot more difficult over a large area. If you don't get those larger volumes correct, then it doesn't matter how much detail you pour into the piece, it's not going to look good and it's going to look a little bit flat. So the techniques that I used in this artwork were primarily working with cotton wool and makeup brushes, which are my new favorite tool. The reason I'm working with these tools is twofold. First, it's just a larger tool, so it's easier to get balanced tones over a larger area, which helps us solve the problem of working so large. It isn't foolproof though, it can still be a little bit blotchy, and you do have to practice them quite a bit in order to really get the best value out of it. And then secondly, the way that it applies graphite to your paper is very gentle, and that allows you to then lift tones back out. So you start to build up these layers, constantly coming back to your larger shapes, making sure that you're not losing the integrity of that larger volume. You're eventually going to get to a point where you can start to just pull out these tiny little hairs. They come out very easily, and you're just enhancing what's already there. There are some marks that you want to make that help you keep the proportions of your reference, and going over large areas means that you can hide those marks quite easily. So it is a balance of making those marks very lightly, going over with cotton wool or a brush, and then trying to pull some of those marks out a little bit more so that your reference is still there. Once you have a good foundation down, it can get really fun and experimental. So I often flow between different ways of trying to achieve textures. It can feel really overwhelming to draw a highly detailed texture over a large area, and the amount of time that you're going to pour into that is just going to be insane. What I find really useful is to study what's actually happening and really understand how the light is falling onto the surface. So whether we're working with wrinkles or crevices in the skin, or if we're working with little bumps or extrusions in the skin, and that's going to affect which side your highlight and which side your shadow is on whatever that detail is. So often with skin, we have wrinkles and small crevices, pores, that kind of stuff. That all has a highlight on the opposite side of your light source. So I'll try and illustrate this on a piece of paper or something. Once you have that understanding down and you feel like you understand the nature of the surface that you're trying to render, we then have to try and make sure that the marks we're making feel organic as well. And that involves things like avoiding straight lines and kind of study how the skin is falling over the muscle structure below. So that'll mean foreshortening if you were drawing my face straight on and the side of my nose here, all the detail is kind of turned sideways. And that means that lines that were kind of spaced evenly apart like that will then start to get spaced very narrowly apart, and you can think of that as contour lines. So those are small details to look out for, and that's going to help just add an extra layer of depth and help build that sense of volume around the face. The next thing is to just stay experimental and adopt a kind of trial and error process. So make some marks. Try not to feel too worried about ruining the work that you've already done. Your marks are going to be very light and you can always remedy them, but what you're looking for is a moment of connection that the texture starts to jump out. It's a very hard thing to try and articulate, but essentially you're making marks that mimic your reference as closely as possible, but you're not rigidly adhering to it. And while trying to almost project that understanding that you have of the surface, so where the highlights, where the shadows are going to be, you almost explore your way through the texture. So in this case with the skin, there were these random dots of pores, and then the creases would kind of join between those pores in almost a slightly diamond-ish shape, but they weren't always diamonds. If I just drew diamonds the whole time, that would create a pattern and it would look really unnatural. So I kind of broke it up into, there'd be 2 diamonds, and then I try and cut the diamond in half and make like a 3 shape or something. It gets really weird. You sort of discover these weird codes that you want to try and use to keep it random and keep it organic. That's just my process, but this is the thought process behind how I feel like I unlock these textures. Often I'll do something and it just falls flat, and then I'll very carefully erase some of those marks, try and soften them, or just go over with a brush and kind of brush them away. That's really the beauty of using this technique with softly applied graphite, is that you can actually brush it away and go back in with new marks. It's not foolproof though. The more that we work into the paper, the more saturated it gets, and it's going to be harder to pull highlights back out. So we do have to put a lot of care and work as accurately as possible. So I hope you enjoyed the deep dive into how I problem solved the skin texture in this piece. I think it might be useful for me to include a more real-time video, so I'll do something like that on my second channel, and I'll include the link in the description below, so you can check that out if you're interested. As far as details go with skin texture in particular, I think this is probably the most detailed I've ever gone in trying to problem solve a skin texture. Before I end this video, just want to give a quick shout out to this video sponsor, Squarespace. I've been working with them for a couple of years now, and they've played a huge role in my career. Not only in sponsoring this video and helping me maintain this channel, but more importantly, early on in my career, I was looking for a way to showcase my work, and I didn't have time to learn HTML and to try and build a beautiful website as well as maintain my art career. So I was looking for a way to showcase my work and make it easy for collectors to find me and get in touch with me. And I felt that Squarespace did that effortlessly. I never had to patch or upgrade anything. I could register a domain with them and set up an online store. And most importantly, I could design a portfolio and show my work the way that I wanted to. Also, every time I got stuck, their amazing support team helped me out instantly. So if you're looking at building a website, give Squarespace a try. And if you decide that you love them, use the soft code and get 10% off your first purchase. There we go. This drawing was so much fun, and diving into these techniques that I've been exploring for the last couple of years and really feeling like they were being refined with this piece was extremely cathartic for me. So I hope that I could articulate some of the thought process behind how I problem solve these textures, and hopefully it'll help you out. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. It always helps the channel out in a huge way. As always, thanks for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.